Let me introduce you to the people whose obsession became their addiction, built empires, fueled investments, and shaped our future. I'll walk you through the crazy, the impossible, and the spark that fueled someone's passion become the right side of obsession. What one person might call crazy, another will say obsession. Together, we will explore how the right side of obsession can fuel your motivation, transform the impossible, and build your resilience to make you unstoppable. Watch as I take you inside the obsession to witness the hyper-focus and laser beam energy required to grow your business and build your empires. Obsession has birthed inspiration and fueled dreams. I will show you how the obsession is necessary to turn your passion into profits. Welcome to the season of I Own It. Obsession, where one person's dreams become a reality. Matthew Arkin is a critically acclaimed actor, acting teacher, author, entrepreneur, and he says a recovering attorney. As an actor, Matthew has worked in film, television, and on stage for more than 50 years, working with some of our nation's leading established playwrights and the most notable new talents, garnering critical praise in various roles. His latest role is being the co-founder of Batch 22, a new American aquavit spirit brand. Matthew and the two of his best friends created it in an LA kitchen back in 2019. It's described as a unique American spin on an old traditional world aquavit recipe, offering a smoother, more mellow, citrus and herb-forward drink that's tasty. I can't wait to hear this story and more. Welcome to the show, Matthew Arkin. You've accomplished so much as an actor, a teacher, an author, and an attorney, and now as an entrepreneur. What role has obsession played throughout your life story?
Well, I think primarily obsession is what probably spurred me to quit practicing law and go back to acting. I'd been an actor, started acting when I was 8 years old. The first job I had was a film that my father directed, that he wrote and directed, and it was just me and my older brother. And it was nominated for Best Short in, I think, 1969, and that sort of gave me the bug, and growing up on film sets with him. And then for a variety of reasons we don't need to get into, I departed from the family path and went to law school and practiced for 5 years, but was not happy. Smoking too much, drinking too much, just miserable, and obsessed with getting back to acting. And so I quit at 29 after practicing for 4 years, but I continued to practice on my own for another year or a year and a half just to put food on the table. And then once I started getting work, quit practicing altogether because you can't tell the judge, can we have a 3-month adjournment? I'm going to Pittsburgh to do a play. Right. So I had to give all of it up and just go to bartending and doing all kinds of things like that to keep body and soul together. And I don't think without being obsessed, I don't think you'd put yourself through all that.
Well, how did you come up with the idea for Batch 22? Like, how did that happen?
Well, the germ of it, and it goes into my relationship with my dad a little bit. Back in the 70s, he was making a film in Europe, and there was this incident that happened where it's about 3 o'clock in the morning on a cold set, and the crew was tired and grumpy, and some grip who didn't speak any English pulled an unmarked bottle out of his kit bag, something he made back in his home village. Nobody spoke any English. And he poured shots for everybody, and they cheered and got back to work. And it just sort of reignited the evening.
Right.
And it was the first time I looked at alcohol and thought, oh, this isn't just something that, grown-ups drink and you can maybe sneak some out of the liquor cabinet. But I realized there's story, there's history, there's community, there's tradition. There's all these things that bind people together in a spirit. We have no idea what that was that he poured for everybody. I did get a little bit of it. I was 16. But my dad and I often talked about that night, just that sort of magical evening. Then, shortly before the pandemic, he called me one day, and he would frequently, read something on the internet and say, you can make pickles at home, or you can do this, and he knows that I love to tinker with hobbies. And if the theme is obsession, I do get obsessed with like I'll read something and I'll go, oh, I want to learn that hobby, and I'll do it for 6 months or a year and learn a lot about it. So he called me one day, and he must have read an article on the internet, and he said, you can make aquavit at home? And I said, that's interesting, Dad, and I didn't do it. But he kept bringing it up every time we were on the phone. And so finally, he said, all you got to do is you get some vodka and some spices, you put it in a mason jar, let it sit for a few days, and you got aquavit. So finally one day I decided, okay, I'll do it. Put a smile on Dad's face. And I looked at a lot of recipes, because that's what I always do when I'm going to cook or make anything, look at all the recipes and then figure out what take I'm going to make on it. And most of the traditional, aquavit is a Scandinavian spirit. Most of the traditional versions of it lean very heavily on anise and fennel, and I'm not really fans of that sort of big, strong licorice flavor. So I left that out. And the only thing you have to have for aquavit is caraway. Similar to gin, you have to have juniper. So I looked at these different recipes and made my own decisions about the spices, and I made a batch of it. And after a few days, I ran it through a strainer and then a coffee filter and put it in the freezer and then tasted it. And I thought, this is okay, and I'll drink this bottle with friends over the course of a year, and I will never do this again. Then a buddy of mine, who's now one of the partners in the company, tasted it. And he used to be George Clooney's stand-in on commercials that were shot for foreign markets. And when he tasted it, he had a whole bunch of thoughts. First, Casamigos had just sold for $1 billion. So that was thought number one. Then he thought, I remember Clooney bringing those early iterations of Casamigos to set and tasting them. This tastes a hell of a lot better than that does. It's not another tequila. The market's flooded with celebrity tequilas and et cetera. It's not another bourbon. It's not another gin. It's something people don't know about. And he thought, and I really like this. And if I like it, other people are going to like it. And he turned to me and said, we should sell this. And I was like, really? He said, yeah. So we spoke to another friend of mine, my best friend since college, who's started some businesses and knows how to write a business plan. And we decided to make a go of it. We were tinkering with it, and then the pandemic hit. And none of us had anything to do except work on this. And that's why the name of the company is Downtime Cocktails, because we had a lot of downtime and we could go all in on this.
Matthew is a living example that you can reinvent yourself at any time, at any age, and no matter what kind of career. Don't make light of those casual conversations you have with your buddies, as it might turn into your next business. If you're curious about learning, like Matthew, it can fuel your obsession. So when you got to the final product, which we see behind me, how long did that take? How crazy were you to say, well, we're tinkering this, and at what point you're like, this is it, we got to live with it, and we're going with this?
It took a year and a half to get to the final recipe, where we sat there and said, lock it. Yeah.
Got it. So you believe that sharing one story is a powerful force of healing, and your mission is to connect people to their own vision.
Hopefully over a glass of aquavit.
There you go.
Yeah.
So how does obsession fit into all this?
One of my partners kept saying, whenever I go, oh my God, this is like we're working 12, 14-hour days all the time. And one of my partners says, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
That's right.
And without being obsessed with this, there's no way to get a business off the ground, because it is true. If it was easy, anybody would be able to do it, and to get it To get it to take flight takes all your work. To distinguish yourself from the competition, especially with something like Batch 22, which is a category that people are not familiar with. And everybody thinks they know everything about alcohol. So they come in and they say, so it's a tequila? No, it's aquavit. Oh, so it's a vodka? No, it's aquavit. Aquavit is its own category, in the same way that tequila is a category, vodka is a category, gin is a category. But because they haven't heard of it, they think it has to fit into something they're already familiar with. But really, it's similar to gin in that it's a neutral grain spirit infused with herbs, spices, and botanicals. And to be gin, you have to have juniper, and then anything else you want to do to it. That's why there's 1 million gins on the market now. For aquavit, you have to have caraway.
Is there any U.S.-based manufactured aquavits?
There are other aquavits out there. Most of them lean very heavily into the traditional Nordic version of it, which has a much, although we're the same proof, we found a technique to smooth ours out. Ours is a lot more approachable and sippable. We run all the time into people from Norway and Sweden who, when we say, hey, you want to try our aquavit? They're like, no, I always have to drink that with my family at the holidays.
Okay.
I'm over it.
Right.
And we say, try ours. And they do, and then they go, oh my God, this is so smooth. It becomes, it's a different approach that we've taken.
What's Batch 22? What does that mean to you?
A couple of things. We were trying to come up with a different name. Mm-hmm. We wanted something that sort of hinted at, the Nordic thing. We thought of calling it first Stellar with the umlaut over the A. Not that we know what that means, but it looked Nordic.
Right.
And we couldn't get the trademark on that because there's another company called Stellar Organics, which is a wine company in South Africa. Mm-hmm. So our trademark, after it took 9 months or so to finally be told, sorry, you don't have the trademark. So then we started trying to come up with other names, which is a long process. Yeah. First of all, what feels right to you? Mm-hmm. Then what can you get clearance on? So you've got to be doing, if you don't hire a company, and we didn't have any money at the time to hire companies to do this for us, we were doing deep dives on the internet to try and find other companies that had any name that we came up with, or searching the trademark records ourselves. We were struggling, and then I remembered back in law school the stories of how WD-40 and Formula 409 got their names. Do you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, WD-40, water dispersal 40th attempt.
That's right.
All the binders up on the wall, WD-1, WD-2.
Okay.
Same thing with Formula 409. So one day I just said, why don't we call it just batch whatever?
Right.
It was that, and so then we counted up the batches that we'd done to get to the right recipe. And the moment we realized that it was batch 22, I said, oh, so it's batch 22. We all looked at each other like, oh my God. It. Because my dad gave me the initial idea. He starred in the movie Catch-22. So it was like also a little inside baseball tip of the cap to him.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Love that.
And so it all worked out.
So how has your work as an actor prepared you for success as an entrepreneur? What skills?
Oh my God.
What skills have come out of that?
That's a great question. I was talking to somebody about the business a couple of months ago and talking about our financial plan and getting investors and et cetera, et cetera. And they said, "Oh my God, you know so much about the business side of this. It's like you've taken an MBA program." I said, "No, I'm an actor. I have a lot of people around me who know a lot about the business, and I've been listening to them for the past year explain all of this. Half of the stuff I'm saying I don't understand at all. I know it's true because our lawyer and our financial advisors that's what they're saying. Right. But I'm an actor. I know how to learn my lines, and I know how to deliver them as if I know exactly what I'm talking about." So the investors trust me, and then when they get to questions that I really can't answer, we refer them to our lawyer and our financial people, and they can answer all the questions.
So, Matt, as you know, real estate's my obsession.
Right.
especially commercial real estate. And it has played a huge role in my life. How does real estate play a role in your business or your life?
It's interesting. It's played a role in Batch 22 because one of the partners was involved in real estate, and he would try to sell Batch 22 the same way he sold a real estate investment. And the structure of this is too different.
Right.
People who are involved in real estate are looking for a certain level of security and a predictable ROI, which you can explain to somebody with an apartment building. You can go over the metrics. We had a meeting early on with a fellow who was going to invest $100,000. And he brought his financial advisor with him. And the moment I saw the financial advisor, I said, he's not investing.
Yeah.
Because a financial investor said, the advisor said, so what's the predicted ROI on this? I said, nothing to a boatload of money. And he said, that's ridiculous. You've got to be able to show me stuff that shows what the plan is and predictable metrics. I said, can't do it with this. He said, there is no investment in the world that works that way. And I said, you're wrong. And he said, name an investment that works that way. I said, okay, let's pretend it's 40 years ago, and I invite you to dinner at Sardi's. And I say, I'm doing a musical. I want you to invest $100,000 in this musical. It's about singing and dancing cats. Well, everybody who invested in Cats could have lost all their money the next day, or it could have run for a year and they could have broken even, or they could still be making money now. That's what Batch 22 is. We don't go to people who are, and this is interesting because one of the partners had deep connections to a lot of wealth through his mother. And he thought, all of these people are going to want to invest. None of them invested, because they were all in their late 70s, 80s. You're not going to invest in this at that point. You're going to invest in real estate or something that has a predictable return. This is an investment for people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are looking to, they've got a portfolio that has a high degree of reliability in many of the assets, and now they've got $50,000 or $100,000 that they want to roll the dice on.
Right. So can you describe how being obsessed fuels and fulfills you in your professional and personal life?
I'd say it fulfills me in my professional life more than it does in my personal life.
Okay.
I sort of don't know what to do with myself when I'm not actively engaged in something that could produce some results. And I think to some extent that might be a character flaw. You know, there's times where I don't know how to go on a vacation and just relax.
A lot of people that want to get into business or become an entrepreneur realize they have to be focused. They have to be obsessed to really get to that desired outcome and be laser focused and avoid distractions. So with the people that are watching this, what advice would you give someone who is on the fence about diving in and really going after hard of what they want in life, that really what their obsession is?
You know, that's interesting because I think if they've really got the obsession, they're not going to have to figure out what you just asked. I say to people who want to be actors, they're like, well, I'm thinking about it, but I don't know, there's a lot of, I said, don't do it. Like, what do you mean? I said, if you haven't started and you're already wondering whether or not it's a reasonable thing to do, don't do it. It is an unreasonable thing to do. All of the things that can bring you tremendous success are unreasonable things to do. Right? A reasonable thing to do is go become an accountant.
Right.
Go learn a trade. And I'm not putting this down at all. There are many times where I lie in bed at night and wish that I didn't have whatever gene it is that makes me obsessed. That I remember there was a guy who owned this sandwich shop in the town that I used to live in, and it was one of those places that was open at 5, with the fresh donuts, closed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after the lunch rush. and he bought a couple of little apartment buildings and investments. So it was the same routine every day, and he loved his life. And there's times where I used to look at him and go, God, I wish that was me. I wish I was happy with that kind of routine, because in some ways my life would be easier. In a lot of ways my life would be easier.
Well, look at your father's career. Wildly successful actor.
Yep.
Been a tremendous amount of movies and shows. Do you feel his obsession for acting and his success wore off on you?
Yes, but I also feel like there's a big difference between the two of us.
Okay.
I think my father was one of the great actors, certainly of his generation, and I don't want to say all time because I didn't live back in ancient Egypt.
Right.
Maybe there were great actors there. And I have nothing but respect for him as an actor. Yeah. But I realized something as we were working on this, and he saw us working on it. He got to see Batch 22 launch before he passed.
Initial reaction.
Boy, that's great. That's really great.
He was obsessed with asking me how the company was doing. And I realized shortly after he passed that as lauded as he was and as amazing a career as he had, my father was never anything ever than somebody else's employee. And I realized I am working with two of my best friends to build something that we've built and that we own. And I guess that's what you call being an entrepreneur. I never set out to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
But that feeling of knowing, because I can remember sitting alone in my kitchen making the first version of Batch 22, and now I can walk into any Total Wine in the state of California, and there's a bottle, there are many bottles of Batch 22 on the shelf. And I can walk into bars and restaurants in LA or in San Diego. And I go, wow, that was an idea in my head. And now strangers are drinking it, right? They don't know anything about me. They don't know anything about the story. It's just a product on a shelf. And that's an amazing feeling to have created something that I hope our vision for Batch 22 is to bring aquavit into the mainstream.
Well, thanks for sharing your time with us, and we really appreciate it. And it was just a pleasure to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much.
We should have a cocktail.
Absolutely, let's do it.
All righty.
Obsession can drive people to do things they wouldn't normally do. Obsession can prioritize your dreams over daily comforts and create the momentum you need to go from good to great. Now it's your turn to fuel your obsession and join others, great leaders, investors, inventors who are leading the pack. What are you waiting for?